All right. Hey everyone, this is Paul Somoso, and I'm here with William Brown, and he is with Expanding Frontiers. Now, William, can you tell us a little bit about that, about Expanding Frontiers and what you do, what you
Yes.
do there?
So my name is William Brown. I am the just a little background about myself. I'm the founder and CEO of Embedded Incorporated, one of the startups that Expanding Frontiers helped launch. I am also the founder and president for the National Space Society South Texas chapter. We're part of a nonprofit that helps to do a lot of space advocacy around the world, using a lot of chapters that we have and events. I'm a mechanical engineering student from UTRGV, graduated with my bachelor's a few weeks ago in May, and I also work here at Expanding Frontiers. So Expanding Frontiers is, you could think of it like a company that's focused on developing other startup companies. And so with Expanding Frontiers, they are a tech incubator. They have a portfolio of NASA technology, and they run a year-long program called the ERA program, the Entrepreneurship in Residence and Apprenticeship Program. And so the apprentices in the program, they're you can break the course up into like two halves. The first half, they're taught about the basics of entrepreneurship, how to launch a business, funding opportunities to look out for, basic info on getting a patent filed. And then the second half of the course is actually launching your company. And so a lot of other places might tell you, oh, we teach you how to launch it, but you don't actually launch it. But here at EXF, you do launch your company, you do move forward with it, and then at the very end of it, you actually get to pitch your product. And then once you finish that, you join the accelerator program. And it's just, nonstop mentorship. You're given lab space, access to machines, so you could 3D print, you can machine your parts, you can all the resources you need to make sure you're successful, you're provided with that.
That's amazing. What kind of startups do they mainly focus on, or can you give me a little bit of information on
Mhm. Yeah, so a lot of the startups they're all tech-based startups,
that?
but there's a big variety of them. And so the main thing that they all have in common is they either use some sort of NASA technology that was made for in-Earth application, or my bad, in-space usage, but now they're commercializing it for on-Earth usage, or they were inspired by NASA technology and maybe, they realized they didn't need to license it and they go a slightly different route, which is what was the issue, not the issue, but the case of my company, right? We were using a certain RFID system that NASA was using for it was like cargo tracking on the space station. But we realized we were using different antenna setups and all that, so we didn't license their patent. We went our own route, but inspired by their technology. Um, there is
Definitely.
some companies there. There's one that called Permittivity, where they're working on like a handheld sensor that uses that's used or it's a handheld device using a small sensor that'll tell you like when there's cracks and defects in pipes so you can prevent oil spills. There's also a team doing carbon capture technology. There's wastewater treatment. So it's a big variety of projects.
Wow, yeah, that seems pretty diverse. Yeah, so let's go over the website a little bit. Well, actually, you know what? Tell us a little bit about yourself, like and where you're from, and like your journey and like how you got here.
Definitely. I I right now I live in San Benito, Texas. I lived in Brownsville most of my life, but
Grew up
when
there.
I graduated from high school, I moved up here. It's about 10 minutes away, so I still say I'm from
Yeah,
Brownsville.
it's
Um,
still the same. It's like
it's pretty close.
yeah. I live in Mission, but I just live in McAllen, just to
But you
kind
just say right. I mean, they're close enough. So,
of yeah, yeah.
all
That
my
makes
life
sense.
I've been interested in, in engineering and in technology. And so, because there's so much you can do, and there's a lot of cool projects. And so I was always fascinated, working in like science fairs, Brainsville competitions, which was specifically towards inventing something, right, to solve a certain issue. So I was doing like oil spill cleanup stuff in elementary, and I think everyone did the basic solar powered backpack so you could charge your phone or your Nintendo. So,
Yeah.
but as a kid, I was like, oh, that's groundbreaking. So, once I got to high school, this was before SpaceX, was in Brownsville. So my thought was, I'm leaving to either Houston, Austin, somewhere in California, or somewhere in Florida. That was it. And then SpaceX said they were coming here and all that. And I figured, you know what, there's some hope, right? And so I decided I would stay. I'd pursue my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. And I also joined a research group at the university called the Center for Advanced Radio Astronomy. So I was in high school doing radio astronomy projects and research with undergraduates and graduate students, which was a pretty cool experience and getting to go to their conferences and do all the research events. And the director for that program, Dr. Janae, once I had graduated high school, he had left from the university and he went on to found Expanding Frontiers. And so once I got to the university, we stayed in touch. I started getting involved there at EXF. And it was just, getting things, uh, there was like small programs going on, like a high school academy that they would have to teach, high school students, but in the summer. And so that was so they could get experience, even when they're out of school with using like I don't know, just doing like astronomy stuff, learning about astronomy, learning about entrepreneurship, just constantly keep them learning and involved. And so eventually they finally got the ERA program started in summer of 2021. And that's when I got to help launch my startup, which is Embedded. And I was able to pitch at the end of the program. I was able to get some funding. Got the company legally formed a few months after that, and then have just been moving forward, constantly with the company, achieving our milestones, working on our prototype. And then there at EXF, I'm the co-director for the ERA program itself. So right now helping to launch the third cohort, which is coming up at the end of July. So that's going to be very exciting to see, another set of companies coming out like we do every year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Yeah, no, so yeah, it's really a big deal like for SpaceX to move down here, right? Like I mean I'm sure like you've uh you've felt that or you've I don't know, like experienced firsthand like the effects of like SpaceX
Yeah.
coming down here. Like what do you think of that? Or like what's your um
Mhm.
yeah, the influence that SpaceX is having on the valley, like your thoughts on that.
Yeah, in terms of like economic development, there's definitely been a big, a drastic improvement. I remember, like back when I was in high school, there really wasn't too much going on in Brownsville, which is why a lot of people were leaving right away. And then I was looking at it in terms of, career opportunities. There really wasn't much going on in terms of tech. And
Mhm.
so the only options were either, launch your own tech company, or you could either work at the port
Yeah.
or you would leave. But I was real interested in space technology, and at the time, launching your own company didn't really seem like it's just something that I didn't think was possible. Like I knew people did it, but I didn't imagine myself doing it. And
Go to
so
SciTech.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
I I thought and thought, and I was like, I don't know if it's something I could do. Um, but once SpaceX got here, yeah, that's what helped me stay here because I realized there is an opportunity for jobs and all that. But now you also see this big boom in people being interested in launching their own tech companies because it's like, well, one of the tech giants is here in Brownsville. All these people are getting involved with it, and then we've heard a bunch of other little companies coming out catered around SpaceX launches or flights for SpaceX or like viewing areas for the launches and all that. So now it's like everyone's getting like an entrepreneurial drive. And then you're seeing all these restaurants that are like space themed pop up all over Brownsville, and these
Yeah.
rock themed bars. And then
Yeah.
honestly, like I guess like the science or like rocket or space culture in Brownsville is kind of growing too. Cause now you see a lot of people just, talking about it. Like I said, I run the National Space Society chapter for South Texas.
Mhm.
And now that all these launches are happening and stuff, we're getting a lot more people who are just interested in our events. They're asking, are you going to get someone from SpaceX to talk here? Can you get Elon Musk? And it's like, before, we really didn't have too many members, but now we have a lot of people interested. So generally, I would say it's a positive impact. There's also, yes, there is, issue of like, oh, we're also getting, like housing prices and stuff are starting to go up. There is a lot of people that's moving in real quickly and all that. I think if things are managed uh, carefully and all that, over time it kind of fixes itself out. But for the most part, it's been a great impact on Brownsville.
There is a bit of a culture clash, isn't there? With like
Sometimes, yeah, a
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit.
yeah. No, I figured because like these like it's like those the Silicon Valley types, and then like you get like it's The RGV is they're very different worlds. I mean, they're both valleys, but very different kind of valleys.
Yeah. And I noticed because 'cause we always hear about Silicon Valley,
Hmm.
and like I'd mentioned before, launching a company, launching a startup, it takes a lot of work. It's a big risk too, and it's not something you would hear a lot about here in Brownsville. But then, once I got involved here at EXF, which is specifically catered toward launching startups, and then I launched my startup, and then I started just seeing, there's more places all over, more tech incubators coming out, or more opportunities for entrepreneurs in the area. And now it's like it's a big, there's so many people interested in doing it. And not even just with tech, but like just in general, just people wanting to take that risk and do their own thing. So I think that's a great benefit to it because I think it took, a big, SpaceX, a big group coming here to Brownsville to like get people inspired, but then people realizing like, whoa, like this is like the next Brownsville's the next spaceport of the world. And then this is soon going to transform into a tech hub and people wanting to just be part of that. So I'm very excited to see, what then the next 10, 15 years, what's gonna, the big changes that are happening in Brownsville.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been a lot of changes since SpaceX moved in, right? Like I've been kind of like looking at the Boca Chica site, and so much has changed
Uh-huh.
like in the past just 5 years or something.
It's
So for
crazy
sure, yeah,
how fast they build out there.
they move.
I mean, because I had gone out, I got interviewed. I was trying to do an internship.
Hmm.
This is my second semester of college. I had barely taken physics one. I was not in a position to
Hmm.
intern there. But they had a job fair and they were barely putting just the frame for the vehicle assembly building.
Yeah.
And then I had gone back out a few months later and it was practically complete. I was like, there's
Oh
no way
wow.
they did it like
Uh,
in 4 months. But I mean, they're
yeah,
just
yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah. Their pace is quite. It's something else. It's something else. I just remember when it was just a pad. To be honest, like
Oh,
there
just a
wasn't
big
even like
dirt
a single
mound.
structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was just like a concrete, like it was just like a piece of concrete in that area. I was like, wow. So, um, yeah, so this is the website, right? Expanding Frontiers. Let's go through it a little bit. Um, wait. So your startup, Arfid
Yes.
Chips. What's
Uh-huh.
what's what's up with that?
Yes. So with embedded, what we're doing, you can think of it like developing a smart blanket or a mattress
Mhm.
cover. And so we're embedding, which is why it's called embedded, putting RFID tags. They're, think of them like a little paper thin sensor. They're wireless, they're self-charging. And so we embed them into this pad. You lay it on the mattress, and then you put all your bed sheets and stuff on top of it, have an antenna above the bed, and then you have an elderly patient at a nursing home who is struggling with either, getting up from the bed unassisted, or they tend to just get up and wander a lot. Nurses have trouble tracking the patient, but they want to keep the patient comfortable. So you use our product. That way the patient's monitored. You can know their movement, their positioning across the bed, but the patient is kept comfortable because they don't feel the tags or anything since they're so thin. They're wireless. There's no wires and anything coming out because it's self-charging. No cameras watching them, and you essentially have real-time footage of them moving. Once they're getting out of the bed, you get alerts to help prevent falls. It's not going to, completely prevent a fall, but it gives you better monitoring of the patient while keeping them comfortable.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's very interesting. So it's let me see. So it's a blanket, right? Is what you're saying with like embedded
A
ARFIDs?
bed sheet that you would lay on top of. Mhm.
Yeah. I used to uh play around with I don't know if you've ever heard of like grounding.
Oh, yes.
Like grounding. I used to have like a grounding blanket, which
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. So it was like, I don't know if you're familiar with how that works, but it's like, and you run a wire and then you like put it ideally you run it into like the ground, right? So like grounds your body,
Mhm.
and then apparently, or there's like been some studies that showed it kind of like decreases like inflammation or something like that. So it kind of sounds like
Oh,
something
okay.
similar. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like for like recovery, like it's like for athletes and stuff. I've heard of it. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
They've
I didn't
done.
know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's very niche.
Mhm.
It's not a very well known thing, but I have read some studies on it that like help I guess athletes recover faster. I think in like bike, um, like Tour de France and stuff, like those kinds
Mhm.
of things, because they have to like recover, like super quick. And I've I don't know. I've heard. That's what some of the research I've read on that. But yeah, it kind of sounds like very similar to something like that. But it tracks them, right? So it's like it has movement. So when people move like in their blanket, it kind of like it kind of tracks their movement like over time or something, or like at night. Is that
Yeah,
and it
so
alerts some people, alerts some.
yeah, they're positioning on the bed, how much they're moving. You
Mhm.
can see, as they're starting to move over towards the edge, it'll
Mhm.
send alerts to the nurses or, once we integrate this into
Interesting.
an actual household setting, you'd get an alert on your phone. But essentially it will
Yeah.
alert you as they're moving over. So you can go in there, check on them a little bit before they're getting up out of the bed. Maybe they're just rolling over, but they could be getting up. It's just to help keep
Gotcha.
watch.
It's like
Also
life alert. It's like life alert, but a blanket,
pretty
right?
much, yeah. And
Right?
using it before you fall
Yeah.
on the ground, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so yeah,
That,
just
that, that,
to
that- there's your elevator pitch, by the way. If you're,
yeah, there we go, right?
you know how
Yeah,
like in Silicon Valley, there's like, oh, we're the Uber of this or the
you
something.
gotta reference other products. You gotta yeah, you gotta make the comparisons.
Right, right, right. Oh, okay. So it like makes people, it clicks, like people get
Yeah.
it now. Like, oh yeah. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of uses for RFID chips, like in
Mhm.
so many ways. So like underutilized,
Oh
but
yeah, and I
yeah.
I was surprised to learn how I guess everywhere they are.
Hmm.
People always know like, okay, when you tap to pay at a store,
Oh
you're
my
using
goodness.
RFID technology. That's what's in your card.
I,
But there's also,
yeah.
they'll put them like in license plates or in stickers on a car window, and
Mm.
that's how some states will track a car for like a toll road. They'll just
Oh
scan.
yeah. Yeah, the
So I mean,
NTTA has that. Yeah, the toll
there
tag.
you go.
Yeah, we used to have that.
So
Yeah.
there, it's pretty much it's everywhere. But you just don't realize, oh, it's using RFID technology. You just think like, oh, it's just sensing stuff. It's like, well, but that's the actual tech
Yeah.
behind.
Now tap to pay, man. That I love it when it
Uh-huh.
works.
Oh yeah, I've
It's
been
like
there
fifty
trying to.
fifty. Yeah, it's 50-50. It's like will it work? Will it work? I
Or the
don't know.
ones that don't tell you where to tap. That's I'm
Oh
like
yeah,
tapping
that's
the wrong
another one.
thing.
Yeah. And you're just like tapping around, like, where is it? Where is it? That's not- yeah, I always try to make it work too, because it's like, it's fun. I don't know. It's like this visceral feeling, and it gives like this nice beep, and it's like, I don't know, it's kind of fun to
It's
like,
a lot. It's a lot quicker than just sliding the card or inserting the chip and waiting for it to. You just and you're
yeah,
done. But
yeah,
if it works, right? 'Cause then this.
when it works. Yeah, no, I love it. It's all right. It's all right. So let's see. Let's go over like EXF, like explaining frontiers. I guess we've like kind of covered like pretty much the front page, right?
Yeah.
More or less. Okay, let's check out some of the other things about it. Like okay, programs. Space webinar series. Let's check that. Let's check that. It's a cool website, by the way. What are you using?
Oh, honestly, I'm not too sure what they use to make the website, but they update it quite a bit. I really like it.
Was it like Squarespace or something? Or like
It might be. I'm gonna have to ask them.
okay. Yeah, 'cause I do some like web development on the side, so I'm always like trying to figure out. It's probably in the footer.
Yeah.
Like if you look in the footer, it usually tells you. But okay, let's see. Commercial space webinars. Ooh, neat. So you guys have a webinar. Tell me a little bit about this.
Yeah,
Like
so with the webinar, I know it was, especially really active like during COVID because
mhm,
that was, you
yeah.
you're trying to get out to people in a time where you can't meet up in person, can't have, in-person events. It's real hard to, and that was also, you see it was, the first one was May 1st, 2020. That's right at the start. It was a hard time we really didn't know what was going to happen and when. So with this, it was really just trying to get information out to people, tell people what's happening. Like it says, explore many themes in commercial space. And the main thing at Expanding Frontiers, and it says it here too, that the transition from old space to new space. So here at EXF, we're always talking about new space. Do you know what new space is?
No, can you, yeah, go ahead and explain that to us. I've never heard of that old space versus new space. Like, what exactly
Yeah,
is that?
so it's this big paradigm shift, and that's what Dr. Janae always says. And it's essentially the moment from when we switch over from government, running the space industry with NASA, European Space Agency, the Russian
Mhm.
Space Agency, being the ones who can do stuff. And then once the door opens up for private space, now we've entered to the new space era, which is where we're at. Now we have private companies that are getting involved, and we can see, the crazy developments, crazy fast developments. And people can argue like, well, should there be a little more regulation because they're kind of just launching left and right, and what if it explodes? But in the grand scheme of things, it's a lot of progress that's being made in a rapid pace. And the amount of technology that's being developed because of it, it's not really held back because of government funding or regulations. The door has pretty much just been open. And so that's really the big thing that, EXF tries to, share with everybody. Uh, Now it's open to anybody to get involved. And, we've heard about, rocket companies that 3D print rockets, in their
Hmm,
garage, and they would fly them up with a weather balloon and then
yeah.
fire the rocket into orbit to deliver a tiny, payload. But
Mm.
that's how their company operates. So really anybody can get involved with it now, which is it's such a cool thing to hear.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. That's a really interesting concept, is using weather balloons to launch a rocket. Because I know
Mhm.
that, yeah, um, yeah, because I know that there's that whole problem of, like, how much fuel do you need to launch, like, a rocket. That's why rockets are so big, right? Because,
Yeah,
like, you need fuel to launch the fuel, right?
it's a never
Like,
ending problem.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, how that's why they're so huge. And it's like, and they're big because it's like, you have to launch. I don't know. It's this huge thing, right? Like, I didn't really used to think about this myself, but after I realized that, okay, so you need like a pound of fuel to launch, like, uh, another pound, but then so you need to start adding more pounds to launch that pound, but then you
Yeah.
need more fuel to launch, more fuel. So,
Yeah, it's a never ending cycle. I saw a talk by a professor at the
mhm,
university. His name is Dr. Creighton,
mhm,
and he shows this graphic that he made.
mhm,
And it's like, okay, let's say we're just trying to get to orbit. If you're carrying this much fuel, or if you're taking a payload of this much, you need this much fuel, but the fuel adds this much to the payload. So let's say we get a little higher, you add this much more fuel, which is this weight plus the payload, and
right,
it just exponentially gets ridiculously
exactly.
big. And
And
it's
before you
and
know it, you have like these giant boosters and, like,
yeah, well,
right?
that's when you start getting into sci-fi tech to just overcome all that.
You
But
know,
it's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know this is gonna, like, delve into like conspiracy theory and like UFOs and stuff, but like, I have heard that, there has been, like, I don't know if you like ever like watch like these like podcasts like Joe Rogan or anything like that, but like, I have heard of, like, government has like anti-gravity, like alien technology,
oh,
like, yeah, yeah. I mean, this is like conspiracy theory stuff, like alien, like, um nothing like really some substantiated, but you just hear like these rumors, right? Like, of alien tech with like anti-gravity and whatever. So I've always wondered, like, if they're just keeping it secret, or if we can use this, like, to
yeah.
get more people in space. So that would be
It's
like
always
amazing.
interesting because I mean, it
Yeah.
you can never rule something out if you don't have a definitive answer. Because when people always tell me, like, okay,
Oh,
like I do believe aliens are real. The universe is so big, it's infinitely expanding, and you see those pictures at the James Webb Telescope. Have you seen them? The ones that they
oh
released
yeah,
with
of course, with all
like
the
five
stars and
hundred
stuff.
thousand galaxies in this picture. And I'm like, well, how many billions of stars are in one galaxy? And you have 500,000 galaxies. How many planets are,
Mm.
you can't tell me there isn't life. But when it comes to like the anti-gravity technology and stuff like that, you know, you can never rule anything out. But it's always cool to just think about that, you know, and just to hear what people have to say. It's always cool to listen.
It is. It is. It's yeah. I mean, there's so many interesting things that can happen. Like
Mhm.
once you start bending or you start breaking like the like rules of physics or whatever. Like when you start going like faster than light, and when you start like there's just so many interesting thought experiments.
Oh yeah.
Like it's interesting. Like okay, if you think about it, if you go faster than light, you can actually see yourself in the past.
I've heard that. Yeah.
You know.
I mean,
Like,
you get all these cool concepts. Well, that's where all the cool science fiction comes from too. You
right.
gotta
Right.
you gotta put the textbook aside for a little bit, have a little fun with it. But it's you get these cool concepts, like you said, cool thought experiments.
Yeah. Yeah. It's extremely fascinating. Extremely fascinating. Let's see. Entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so the EVA program there, that's the main program that we have, the one I had talked about. So that's the one where, you know, you're focused on launching your startup. And so, like I mentioned before, the first half is more like learning about entrepreneurship. And so you can think of it like we bring in speakers who are going to talk to you about funding opportunities. We talk to you about, you know, the legality, like the structure, I guess the legal structure of your company, what each different one is, an LLC, a C corp, an S corp, sole proprietorship. You know, they explain everything, all the basics to you for the first half. And then halfway through, you know, we have a little hackathon where we present you the NASA technologies, and then you get to pick yours. We say, okay, try to come up with, you know, find a problem, come up with a solution for it. We're gonna do a little practice pitch so you can get some experience with pitching. And then once you do that, it's like, okay, do you want to stick with that tech or do you want to choose a different one from the group? Oh, you want to stick with that one or you want to choose? Okay, but now you're actually making the company on that. So, and then you just move forward with it and, you know, provide you with mentors. They help you with your pitching skills. You meet with them, you know, as much as you want to, and they just, you know, they really help you. And you know, as much as you want to meet, as much as you want to practice, review your slides, you work on your business model canvas, you work on everything there, you know, you need to work on.
So NASA technology, that's been
Mhm.
happening for a while,
Yes, yes.
right? Right.
They have a, you know, I
Microwaves,
was so surprised to learn they have a whole department in NASA where they're just focused on, they have all these patents that all
commercialization.
this tech. Yeah, and they're just like,
Yeah.
yeah, who wants to commercialize it? And I was like, I
Yeah.
didn't know that was a thing, but yeah, I mean, it's they just have so much of it, you know.
The buzzword back in the day was space age technology.
Oh yeah, and it sounds cool.
I mean, yeah, yeah, but this is like, I mean, but we're talking about like things like microwaves, nonstick
Right.
ovens,
And
like
that's
things that,
where memory foam came from too, is
yeah,
like
yeah.
space age
Mhm.
technology. Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's really like a lot of the technologies, a lot of the modern technologies that we take for granted these days,
Mhm.
like started out in like as NASA space age tech,
Yeah.
space
Yeah, I was
age.
telling my friends that, you know, like the cameras on our phones, that
Mm,
is, you know, a result of, you know, the Apollo program trying to get pictures from the
yeah.
moon. How do you put a camera in something so small? And then they eventually that, now I'm not sure the direct path line, but I was
Yeah.
reading an article on how that was, you know, a big influencer for getting, you know, small technology to get a camera on a phone. And so a
Wow.
big part of it was, you know, figuring out taking cameras to the moon.
No, that
Is
that those that was before, like those were like in the film days. That was before digital cameras were even,
mhm.
you know, like to where they are now. Because I think digital only really started like in the 90s to 2000 something
Around
like that.
yeah, around that
Yeah,
area.
yeah. So yeah, they were using film back then for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah, it's crazy the I guess like the timeline of events that it just, you know, you work on one thing for so long, and you know how I don't think many people would have expected a lot of the, like we had said, you know, the space tech that they were using back at the start of the Apollo program to eventually have such a big impact on our everyday lives here, you know, in the present. Um, that I'm always, I don't know, I always laugh at the memory foam thing because I'm like, well, you design like these rocket seats to keep the astronaut comfortable and alive, and I'm using that to sleep. It's pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's there's a lot of applications for it. I know
Mhm,
I believe like in F1 cars they use that too, like to keep them safe like
mhm.
during impact, like for impact
Oh,
structures.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean it's also great for keeping my head comfortable too.
Yeah,
For
that's
having a
the most
good night's
important
sleep.
one.
Yeah, most importantly. But yeah, no, it is true. Like these things do really do benefit like society as a whole, like not just like sending people like to the moon or whatever. So it's it's a great thing. Um,
Mhm,
so it wasn't just it's not just like space startups. I noticed like on the flyer. Let me see if it's here on your Facebook. There's a well, find it. But I noticed that there was something you do more than just space. Like there was like other kinds of tech. You do like blockchain tech. You do like data science, artificial
mhm.
intelligence. Yeah, like
Yes, so there
those are
is.
big deals. So,
Yeah, so each cohort focuses on something a little, or each cohort of the AIRA program focuses like on a different set of technologies. So
mhm.
the first cohort, which is what I was part of, there was a lot of RFID technology, but there's also it was a big mix too, right? Because it was the first cohort. So most of the tech there was RFID, but there was some like light, I think like fiber optics lighting.
Huh.
Um, there was I forgot what it was. It was something with like using like the skin cells to like match. I forgot what NASA was doing with it, but they were using like the skin. They had to created a device that would take like a sample of your skin cells for something. I mean, it was a big variety of tech. And then the second cohort was mainly focused, or there's more tech on the wastewater treatment side. This third cohort is, a lot different than the first and second because rather focusing on hardware, this one is more focused on data science. So this one is using space data and figure out how you can commercialize readily available um, data from satellites and make a business out of it. So it is a little more of a challenge, or I guess I might see it as a little more of a challenge just because I'm more on the hardware side of things. So I haven't delved too much into programming and data sets, but there's definitely a lot you can do with it. And I
Do
think
you
it leaves
work?
you a little more flexible too.
Do you work with like binary and assembler?
Um, I'm not gonna lie, I am not too much of a computer science person or a programmer
Uh-huh.
myself. So I'm not too sure.
But I mean, these are like like low level languages that are like
Mm,
almost like right there, like um like basically like right next to like a hardware. Like I don't know if you've ever
mm.
you ever played with like ASICs
No, I haven't.
or like yeah like there's a like or like FPG like field programmable gate arrays like FPGAs and things like that. Like
Oh, I never played with them, but I've seen those little kids. Like I had a friend who would mess with those all the time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I mean it's very interesting. It's very interesting because and I
They
used
are
to
cool.
yeah yeah
I
yeah.
do, I do plan to start learning Python just because, it's what's used a lot here at EXF. But
Mm,
also, it's just I think programming nowadays is such a valuable skill to have.
mhm.
And everyone can agree with that. So it's definitely something I want to start getting a little more involved in so I can just that just opens up the door for more projects that you get to work on.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm a business analytics guy, so like
Oh,
that's
okay.
what I mean. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, but even before like I started like the MBA program,
Mhm,
I've been like delving into like machine learning and data science. Like in like I've been taking like so many boot camps and things like that. So it's like I'm fairly familiar with the whole process, of like gathering and manipulating data, creating machine learning models, and
mhm,
like using like yeah, making like predictions, creating prediction models, and then like testing those models and having like what's it called, like confusion matrices and things like that to test the accuracy of
uh-huh,
of those prediction models. It's so interesting. But
mhm.
let's see if you're really interested. Have you ever been on Kaggle?
No, I haven't.
Kaggle. Kaggle. Yeah, that's the big like data science, like Python
Mhm,
competition, like learning space. That's right. I think I have an account.
Oh,
Let me
okay.
find it for you. Let me find it. Yeah, I can. I mean, it doesn't sound like a super serious website, but it's very approachable and
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's a Jupyter notebook. Yeah, definitely learn Jupyter notebooks. I don't know if you've
Okay.
heard.
I've heard of
Like
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Very useful. Very useful. I was telling the guys that anyone who's like trying to learn like Python, R and Python, like
Mhm.
definitely learn that. Um, but yeah, no, Kaggle's great. It's like awesome. They have like so many data sets and stuff, and that's where like people like compete. There's like prizes.
Oh, really? That's cool.
It's it's awesome. Oh,
Is it it's free to use, right? Like you could just
it
sign up and then
is.
start.
It
Oh,
is. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 It's yeah. Predict malicious was XG boost. Oh, yeah. There's like so many templates, so many things you can use there. It's like it's
Mhm.
amazing. I love it. I love. It's a great resource. Fantastic
That is
resource.
cool. Yeah, I got to look into
Yeah.
that. I was gonna, how'd you get, or what got you interested in wanting to do business analytics?
Um. Let's see. Yeah, so I've always kind of been interested in like business. Like I'm kind of big into like cryptocurrencies and fintech and like
Hmm.
finance, econ, that sort of thing. You know, like these like used to read like not just WSJ but The Economist and things like that. And, I don't know. I'm just a bit of I'm a bit of a business nerd,
Hmm.
something like that. But I'm also like also a tech nerd too. So
Uh-huh. That's a good combination.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's great. It's great. So I felt like business analytics like uh helps combine those two interests of mine. You know, so
Hmm.
it's and I do enjoy it. It is a lot of fun. Like the business aspect is I find actually find I was not like a business major in my undergrad, so I did find the business like concepts more difficult like to grasp or because it's not something I've studied in the past. But the more I guess you say the more advanced like programming that the programming aspects that most of the people like have most of the business majors have difficulty with, I thought was like a breeze. So
Oh,
it was more of a review. Yeah, it's the opposite. Most people, it's like totally backwards. Like a lot of people in our class are like they work as accountants and like they're already in
mhm.
finance and things like that. And they find like the business stuff more as a review and kind of like boring and easy. Whereas I found it like a bit difficult. So
Uh-huh.
um, yeah, and another way around is like they found the coding classes a lot like kind of like the learning curve was a bit high, like or they thought it was like
Yeah.
a bit yeah. It takes them a while, which I kind of I could kind of agree with that
Mhm.
because it did take me a while to figure it out and um with the way our program works, it's like AOP, so it's like it's fast paced and it's like so usually you have like a semester normally, right,
Uh-huh.
to do to finish like two classes or something. These are like a semester split up into two modules, so it's like we have half a semester to get a
Hmm.
class done. So
Oh,
so it's a bit yeah. It's if you're trying to learn like programming aspects, it is a bit like it's accelerated. That's what they call it. So it's a bit cramped. So I can kind of understand that it could be a bit of a challenge, like with a learning curve, like Python.
mhm.
Like programming, I wouldn't exactly say it's like the easiest thing to grasp like immediately.
Right.
Yeah. But once you get it, you get it. It's there. It's there. So check this out, like space coders, man.
Mhm.
Let's talk about this. What is this? What's
Yeah,
going on here?
so with the space coders, they're a group there that's focused on coding. They're at
Mhm,
EXF, and so one cool thing about working there at EXF, so if you get hired as a software developer or as an engineer, because I work there as one of the engineers as well.
mhm,
Uh, and so one of the cool things is because there's so many startups that are getting launched, that all those different, companies stuff you get to work on. And so pretty much we have groups of people who are focused like on the software side. And if there's any events that EXF is hosting where they need to like, have software or some run a program or software going in the background, they're the ones to take care of it, or they're also ready to go in case one of the startups needs to have someone, do programming, whatever, they can jump in and they can help out with that. And so it's a cool thing. And then also it helps, sometimes they just want to teach. They could teach high school students because we have there's a summer academy, and so they learn a bunch of different skills about entrepreneurship and astronomy and new space stuff. And so it's a big variety once you start working there because one day, you might be working on stuff for a startup. Next thing you know, you're teaching, a high school kid during the summer how to use a 3D printer or how to CNC something. So it's you get to wear a bunch of different hats while you're working there.
Yeah, it's it's definitely a very useful skill to have, right? The programming,
Yes.
like in any in
Hmm.
any in many environments. I mean, you know my brother Kane, right? Like
Yes, yes.
from
We
the
we
rocket.
worked together on our senior design project as well.
Uh-huh. Nice,
Mhm.
nice, nice. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. He's more of a hardware guy, you know,
Yeah.
and so yeah, yeah, he is. He loves. He's like really into drones.
I was fascinated because he says he builds his own drones and stuff
He
like that,
does. He
and he
does.
showed me all the components and
Mhm.
the controllers he builds, and I'm like, dude, it's so cool, man. I don't know
It's
how you
sick.
get. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's just
No, for sure, for sure. It's definitely impressive. Like you know, it's he's all into like the drone racing stuff too, you know.
yeah.
So like
Mhm.
me like my thoughts of drones, it's more like cinematic uses, which is like the more commercial aspects of like
Uh-huh.
of drone use. So like yeah, but he's like really into like the more, I guess, like the performance aspects of it, like
Yeah.
and it's interesting because I'm also into Formula One, you know. So
There you
I
go.
yeah, yeah. So I learned so much things. Like we talk about like additive manufacturing,
Mhm.
or like yeah, like 3D printing, CNC, and like just these like all these like processes, and like all these like I mean, we kind of he kind of makes fun of me all the time because every time like we hang out, like all I want to do is talk about F1, right?
Mhm.
And he just wants to talk about drones. His thing is like drones, and I'm like F1. So it's like it's pretty funny. But
I know he showed me some videos of like I don't know if he was wearing them himself or just records it like that. But it's like where you can wear the headset, you
yeah,
see what the drone is saying. That
FPV,
is
yeah,
so cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
first person view,
That,
yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah. Man, that
yeah.
is I would love to fly a drone and see it. I can't fly a drone though. Like the one time I tried it, I crashed it pretty bad.
It's
So it's a skill
it
you gotta pick up.
it's definitely it's yeah I tried doing it on, he has a simulator on his computer, and
Yeah. Mhm.
he let me play with that a little bit, and yeah, it's definitely difficult, but it's if you want to learn, like definitely do the simulator thing first.
Mhm.
In fact, I actually had this little project with that. Like I have a little it's kind of like in the back burner or whatever, but I have a um like a little game pad that I wanted to use um for an FPV drone. Not like, not for racing or anything, but just to kind of like map it and like work. It's more of a
Uh-huh.
hardware issue, right? Like to map it to like a drone. I don't even know if it's appropriate, or if there's like any tools for that. I mean, it's just the USB,
Mhm.
but probably the latency is probably like super high. It's probably not like the most the most efficient, or the best use case, for that sort of
Mhm.
application. but but yeah, no, it's very interesting, like because it really teaches you these like uh what do you call it,
Like fine
um
motor skills, like when you're really trying to adjust like that, because if you move those joysticks a little too much, the drone just shoots off in one direction. I think a lot of
it
people
does.
underestimate how strong the propellers are on it and
Mm,
just what a slight change in angle can do. And you roll it a little too much to one side or you adjust the pitch and it just shoots off in one direction. Um, and so I think it's something you really got to learn. It's not necessarily you have to move it, a certain amount of millimeters, where it's more like on feel and understanding the movement of it. And once you really understand that, um you just have a better grasp on how to control it.
Yeah, I would say that's more like the racing drone types, like the ones that Kane plays
Uh-huh.
with, like because he flies like manual, whereas
Yeah.
like yeah, a lot of the more commercial like drones, like the DJIs and stuff, have they're more
Mhm.
like yeah, there's a lot of like computer assistance, so they're more user friendly. So but also like the smaller ones are definitely more difficult to
Oh
control.
yeah.
Like yeah, if you want like more stability and ease of control, like get like a bigger one, go slower, and I
Mhm.
guess like depending on the payload, right? Which speaking of payload, this is one of those interesting things like about drones is like their flight time is pretty much limited by battery, the
Yes.
weight. Yeah, right.
Which is similar to a rocket issue as well with
It is.
I mean
It is.
it's a never ending, yeah, we're always gonna come across that.
Yeah, it's true though. Like how like if you want to add more flight time, you have to add more batteries, but then you add more batteries, you add more weight, which reduces flight time, which like
You're stuck in that loop. You're never gonna,
yeah. Before you know
yeah.
it, it's all batteries, and you're just there for like which I think I don't know what exactly the specs are, but I think about like a huge portion of the weight, maybe like 90% or something, or 80% of the weight of a drone is just
Just the
batteries.
batteries, right?
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's pretty hilarious. But man, I was thinking like partially like why can't we use like nuclear energy? Because nuclear energy is super dense, and like
I
for
think if you
just like
crash
maybe
that drone, it'd be a
yeah,
pretty
not for drones, but I mean like for rockets,
okay.
like
I
the
was
ones for
like, I don't know about on
rockets.
a drone.
Not for drones, not for drones, obviously not.
Yeah.
But I mean like for a rocket, like
Well,
it
that's the
would,
goal. That's the goal, you know. Uh, but hopefully, I'm not sure how near of a future that is.
yeah. I don't know
But
how sustainable that is,
I
the
don't not
environmental
definitely not in
impact.
my lifetime. But when that happens,
Yeah,
that's when the door really opens up. So
right, right. That'd be crazy. Okay, whoa, hold on, what is it?
yeah, so that
So
space
tell me about the
entrepreneur.
cohorts. The cohorts and stuff, or the summer academy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Space Entrepreneur Summer Academy is the high school program I was talking to you about. So it's gone a few name changes over the few years. When I did it, it was still this was before EXF had a building. So it was originally, or at least when I was part of it, it was called Stargate.
Mhm.
And so that was, when we had our research room was at the university.
Mhm.
And so once I did it, it's actually the course. It's like an intro to astronomy, basics of learning about the new space program, getting involved with entrepreneurship. And so you learn a little bit of everything over the course of 3 weeks. And so when I was there, we did all kinds of cool projects where played a little bit of Kerbal Space Program. Then we made actual little model rockets that got, put a Raspberry Pi in them with a little camera to watch the flight. Most of the flights were just out of control rockets, so not much to see. Um, you got to do all kinds of cool stuff. And then now EXF, now it's more entrepreneur based. That's why it's called the
Mhm.
Space Entrepreneur Summer Academy. So now the high school students are real focused on being taught, the basics of, you still learn, intro to astronomy. You learn about new space age, getting involved, the significance of private companies, the impact they're making in the space industry compared to, before in old space. And then they're taught, how to give a business pitch. They're presented with scenarios and projects like, oh, there's these issues in space. How do you overcome that? How is there industries for this? So you get to learn essentially, there's issues, there's problems. Well, how do you provide that solution to someone who's willing to pay for it? So you kind of learn that full loop. And you get to learn and while learning about space. So it's a really cool program for students.
Like a Silicon Valley pitch, like in Disrupt, you know?
Oh yeah, that could just it's like you learn how to, yeah, give that pitch that's a game changer.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's been a lot of students who, they go through this program.
Mhm.
I know I'm one of them, right? Because I went through it and now I'm working here at EXF.
Mhm.
And I did the program back in 2017. So I've been with them for a few years now. But there's a lot of students who get involved right out the door. And to be doing stuff like this that you're not really taught in high school, and you get to work on all these projects and get to, hands-on experience. It's a great opportunity for students.
Sure, for sure. Now, we're here at the portfolio
Mhm,
companies. What interesting companies do you think have like, or the most to you, like in your opinion, like some of the more interesting ones that have come out of like of the program?
mhm.
Or what
So I
you found interesting? Yeah.
Yeah, so I will say also the ones that are here, portfolio companies, uh, is not updated quite up to date, and the reason for that is because after the first cohort, there's a few startups that came out. There's a few startups from last year's cohort, so there's a lot more than on here. So I know they're working on trying to get all of them on there because it's a lot to put. But Permitivity, they're one of the they just did a big it was like a tech demonstration that they did, I believe in Colorado. And so they're the company I was telling you about that we're working with handheld sensors that they're
Okay.
developing to, run them over pipes so you can find defects and cracks in them. And so that's really cool. And a lot of my work, working there at EXF as one of the engineers, has been for Permitivity's, enclosures. They do these 3D printed enclosures. And so I would work on a lot of the CAD, the modeling of that 3D printing, making sure the sensors are fitting properly and messing with the electronics and stuff. So that was really cool. There's another company there called EtherWorks, and they're doing carbon capture technology as well. And so they're one of the newer companies. So they're still working on getting like prototypes developed and refining business plans and moving forward. But the ideas that they have, because remember, like these all start off as NASA technologies, and then repurposing them for something to be used on Earth. It's just cool to see these different ideas. So
Sure, for sure. Yeah, no, I mean it's in space, like these things are a necessity, but on Earth, like it's kind of it makes the lives like a little bit easier, right? Or it
yeah.
improves our quality of life.
Oh,
For
100%.
sure, right? Oh, um, you guys had that competition about
Oh,
the habitat, the space habitat, like on Mars thing.
Space
I think.
Settlement Design Tournament.
Yeah, yeah. Is that here
Yes.
on the website or like where? Let's see.
Um, I'm not sure if it's on the website. I know for sure it's on the Facebook.
Oh, there it
Oh, I
is.
think
There, space.
there we go.
There we go. There we go. Yeah, I think this is where we
There we go.
yeah, yeah, we talked
Oh,
about this like oh, right, it will be completely virtual. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, yeah, but we did this is what we talked about where I was like talking about the Mars habitats and stuff like
yeah,
on the group chat.
I
That's
remember that.
hilarious. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So Space Settlement Design Tournament, so I've competed in there's different versions of the competition. So there's a Space Settlement Design competition, right? Which
Mhm.
is something that National Space Society hosts, and
Yeah.
then hosted or it's created and ran by Anita Gale, the CEO of the National Space Society.
Mhm.
And then the Space Settlement Design Tournament is ran and hosted by Expanding Frontiers. And so the Space Settlement Design Tournament um, is focused here in Brownsville, and we get students from the Valley as well as students from Mexico and from Latin America. And so with Space Settlement Design Tournament, it's similar to the competition in which it's a weekend long competition. The students have about 24 to 25 hours to put together a 50-page engineering proposal. Or yeah, it's 50-page engineering proposal. They have 35 minutes to present it. And so what you have to do is you're presented with an RFP, a request for proposal, and so in that request for proposal, your judges give the teams this, right? And so the teams, can go from like 20 students up to 64 students. And so the teams are presented with this proposal and you're told, the habitat is going to be is going to be on this lunar crater. And this crater is only gets sunlight this many times, of the day. This is how steep it is. It gives you all the information, but then it tells you this habitat is focused on maybe it's primarily a research habitat for turning the lunar regolith into building materials. Or, like I know with the Mars one or not the Mars one, but the last tournament that just happened, it was a space settlement that was, in orbit. And that space settlement was primarily focused on collecting and repurposing orbital debris. So they have to keep that in mind when they make these designs. All their physics and designs needs to make sense, needs to check out. You need to justify all your numbers, your design choices. You have to show a construction plan, five construction phases of the habitat being built, settlers arriving and settling, how you're providing your air, your water, your food. Or you can't just say, well, we're just going to grow it like this. Like you have to justify everything. And your judges are, industry professionals who know their stuff. So, and it's high school students who are given this. So they essentially pull an all-nighter and then another half day when it comes to presenting. Um, but the experience you get from it, it is the closest you can get to doing an actual industry proposal. And so EXF hosting the Space Settlement Design Tournament gives a lot of students here in Brownsville, in Mexico, Latin America, here in the Valley, these really cool opportunities to just get involved with something that essentially you're working for a company for, a weekend. I mean, you're putting together a proposal. And the cool thing is the students break out into, so there's like 4 different engineering sub teams. Everyone breaks out into their different teams. Someone's elected as the president of the company. They have a vice president of engineering, of marketing, and the students go from someone who hasn't, participated in something like this, had experience to they come out of it with a new perspective. So it's very interesting to see this.
No, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I had some like some very interesting thoughts on this. It's way harder than people realize. Like honestly, just
It's hard
basic
to.
things, life support, is super. I
Oh,
don't know. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
there's a lot you have to take into consideration.
Mm.
And then you watch a movie and the solution's always like, oh yeah, we're just gonna grow this. Oh yeah, we're just aquaponics. That's it. And then it's like, well, you don't really just do that. There's a whole process you have to understand. How do you get the materials there? And even then, like people say, like, oh, we'll just ship the water, we'll do electrolysis, and we'll get this, that. It's like, well, but you can't just like start it. You still need a bunch of materials, and they need to be prepped, and you still need the right conditions. So how do you get those right conditions? I mean, that if it was easy, it would have been done by now. But this is why, the students get to learn about this, and they actually get to think about, how do you solve that issue? It's a cool experience for them. And
Yeah.
each team that competes, they are assigned a CEO for their company, their team, and the
Mhm.
CEO is actually an industry mentor. So someone who's been in the space industry, people who've competed in lots of these competitions when they were in high school. And the CEOs don't compete; they're just there for guidance or mentorship. So I've CEO'd some teams in the past. Actually, my team for the last one I did this a few weeks ago, my team actually won, which I was pretty happy about. But the CEOs they can't answer any questions like, oh, does this design work? Like the only thing you can say is make sure you do your research, make sure you are meeting the requirements, and just think about your design really
Yeah.
carefully. Um, and me as an engineering student, sometimes it's kind of hard because I'm like, man, I really want to like jump in and design, but you just kind of guide them along the way, and slowly they start learning and figuring it out. But it's a cool experience.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, it's great to like like work within these limitations, and
Hmm.
trying to like solving a puzzle, right?
Yeah,
Trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. I've
I
always
think the
yeah, I've and, like there's so many things in the sci-fi, but I've always been kind of like curious, like the real world solutions that already exist. Like I think I mentioned like McMurdo Station in uh
oh
in the South Pole in Antarctica. And
yeah.
then there's also the ISS, the International Space Station too. That's like
Hmm.
that uses like that would have like those kind of technologies that they would probably be using like in a space settlement.
Oh yeah. And so I just got back from or a few weeks ago, right, and from Dallas, and the National Space Society hosts this big conference called the International Space Development Conference, ISDC. And you get to learn about all the industry developments that are happening, the research. And one of the cool things is we got to learn about analog training missions that they do here on Earth. So they'll get planetary scientists or people who are interested in doing like EVA missions on the moon and on Mars. But they have these habitats set up in deserts, in the Arctic, like extreme conditions,
Yeah.
and they have people stay in there for weeks to a few months at a time, and they're told like if you step outside, have to be in a spacesuit so you can
Yeah.
simulate,
Hmm.
and the
Hmm.
food is only grown through aquaponics. The water is only waste, water recycled. They have to learn how to operate that, and it's essentially living on a Martian or lunar habitat, but you're here on Earth. But it's the closest you can get, so they can monitor how the tech works. It's so cool to hear about that because I mean they
Hmm.
design them to as best as they can to work in those areas, on Mars or on the moon. But they keep them here on Earth, right? And then you just put people in them for a few months, and it's like we're gonna record you, we're gonna monitor you. And the research that they get out of it, you get to learn. A lot of people think like, oh yeah, it's just the science of it, but there's, like the mental health aspect of it, the physical health, because the way they train and they work out in them, they simulate the low gravity environments with the workout machines, and I mean, it's so much to take into consideration. It's really cool to just read about that.
For sure, for sure. Did you know that ISS astronauts, to train for like the isolation, the conditions of the ISS,
Mhm.
I think they do a stint at McMurdo Station, like
Really?
a year. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh
They
wow.
train at McMurdo like to kind of give them a a sense of what it's like to be on the ISS.
Wow.
And it's so crazy like the way they recycle water on the
Hmm.
ISS too. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
this, yeah, yeah. It's like today's coffee is tomorrow's coffee.
It's tomorrow's coffee. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like
It's
it's so crazy. Yeah.
I think it's a lot of people like when you don't really think about it, but it's so hard to send resources up there. So the amount of tech that and development that goes into designing something that's going to reuse your water, and then you have to think about how much water is used for drinking, for whatever experiments they're doing, and then you have so many people that are on the station. Everyone drinks different amounts of water for if they're cooking something or prepping something. It's
Yeah.
it's hard to do it, and you have to do it in a way where it's super efficient too, because it's never going to be 100% efficient. And to sustain it because it's not like they have cargo missions every week, so you have to really design something that makes it last. It's
Right.
yeah, I'm always impressed by the work that they've done.
I'm sure it's rationed, you know?
Uh-huh.
Like
Yeah, which is
they
also
can
something
only make
hard that at least on my part, I'd imagine it's pretty hard because sometimes you get those hunger binges and you're like, man.
it. I'm sure, right? You gotta morale and all that. But, I canned food, man. You're gonna have to live on like canned food and
Oh
like
yeah. Oh, and freeze-dried food too.
freeze dried food.
And you
Yeah,
just
freeze
gotta
dried.
yeah, you have to hope you like it because that's kind of what you're stuck eating for the next few months. So
Right? Right. Do you like frozen vegetables? Do you like
you're gonna have to
MREs?
now.
Yeah. That's all there is. That's all there is, man. It's spam all day. Can't- yeah, I mean, it's yeah, a bit of a luxury, you know.
Yeah.
It's not like you can just order a pizza on Mars, right?
Right. Well, not now, right? Maybe 100 years from now.
You know,
But
they make pizza at McMurdo.
really,
Yeah, yeah. They have an oven and they do have a guy there who like I guess I was watching a documentary about it and I guess like the chef his family had a owned a pizza restaurant so he has a they make pizza he makes pizza at McMurdo Station
wow.
which is pretty crazy but I mean it's morale you know it's like it's
Mhm.
something that helps keep people
You got to keep their
motivated
spirits up in those conditions.
yeah
Yeah, it's a hard thing to uh, yeah, I mean you're locked, you're not seeing a lot of people, you can't go outside. So it's you just like you said, something to keep the spirits up, keep their morale up because yeah,
the
after a while,
fantasy yeah
yeah, just trying to
yeah
some sense of normalcy.
right that's the fantasy versus the reality of being in space is like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
yeah.
a lot. I think a big reality too of it that a lot of people maybe don't realize right off, right off the bat is the fact that people think like, oh yeah, we get straight to Mars and we can, it's gonna be cool habitats. But like the first groups of people, it's like you don't get there and it's like, oh, cool, we're on Mars. It's straight to getting a foundation for the actual first group of settlers to show up.
Right,
So
right,
they can actually settle and like start working on some cool stuff. And everything being worked on is cool, right? But really, like the first groups of people there, it's just getting everything prepped for the next group of people, so they can prep for the next group. And yeah, it's I mean, you're starting from scratch, and it's not like, oh, we just got to, like, we landed like on another, like we found a new island that we're gonna, like, no, like we're on another planet. This
this
is,
is
and you only get, it's an 8-month journey,
uh-huh.
uh, and you only get a window every 2 years. And if you want to try to communicate, through radio signals with Earth, there's a 20-minute delay, from Mars to Earth and then from Earth to Mars. So 40 minutes until you hear a response. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
rough. I guess to say the least, right?
Yeah, no, really, like really, it's it, it's like maybe our science isn't really like there. Like, I know you ever watch shows like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't know, like any sci-fi show and whatever, and it's like so easy for them to like live on these planets, and it's like, man,
Mhm.
like um but they
Only
have the
they knew.
science to do it, you know? Yeah, they have the
Yeah.
technology, they have like the fuel, the compact fuel sources and the tech to be able to accomplish these things, you know?
Mhm.
And so yeah, no, it's really amazing stuff, like what they're doing. And you know, and I think that's like a really good thing, that those experiments, like um it's better to like get things wrong here on Earth
Yeah.
versus like when you're already at
On a different
in
planet.
Mars. Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I think we're gonna have to send robots first, man.
Oh yeah.
That's not that's my
Yeah.
thought. Like to build out the to construct like the habitats and stuff, and
Mhm.
like to drill into like, you know, drill up the caves and to like create all the
Yeah,
supporting
just get a
systems.
foundation going because
Yeah.
at least there's something there for people to go and start working
Right.
with, or at least a location to start working at. Because if you go and it's just
Mhm.
the ground,
Just
you're
dirt,
you're
just
starting
red
from
dirt.
zero. Yeah, there's not much. So yeah, I mean, definitely utilizing our current tech now with rovers and all that, and just, yeah, just having them do their thing, getting all the groundwork prepped. That way people can go. They can even start building like just basic stuff. Then once you get like a basic habitat set up, send the first people and they can start working on like food and water stuff, and getting everything ready for the next group of people. But I know people always say like, oh, we should have been on Mars by now, and then, well, we should be there in like the next 5 years, maybe the next five after that. It's like, well, I don't know about that. It definitely within our lifetime for sure, but I think it's not too far away, but it's not as close as we're hoping it would be, you
Right,
know.
right. I mean,
So
it's
I think,
difficult. There's a lot of challenges, man.
yeah,
There's
getting there in
yeah.
itself is just is a big challenge as well. You only have a shot every 2 years, and so that in itself, you're already, if you miss it, let's say that the next window was next year and you miss it, well, you're pushed back by 2 years already. And if your tech's not ready by that window, so then that's another 2 years that you have to wait. So it's yeah, that in itself is already a big issue.
I think we need to start dropping like provisions and supply ships and stuff already to like
Oh
prep it,
yeah.
you know? Like so instead of like having to send robots to like to build the environment,
Mhm.
like why not just like drop like entire rockets, like not destroy them obviously, but just drop them there, and that's like the habitat, you know what I mean? It's like
Oh yeah.
it's bam, it's there. And like i guess I guess it's like compact, so I guess like from there it can like expand out, or you can like
Mhm.
kind of like how a tent is, right? Like you can kind
Yeah.
of like, yeah, like unfold it, or like but just the supplies are there, and like everything is like ready to go. Like just start dropping like pre um I don't know, like provisions or like caches, like
Mhm.
basically like just having caches of like supplies so that it's like it's prepped and it's ready to go. So when people are there, things are bound to go wrong, some things. So it's better to have more that you don't need than to like not have
And then not have
than to not
enough,
have
and
it. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah. Like what's that saying? Like it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
and not have it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and no, and
corporate
that
stuff.
makes sense because I mean, you like you said, there's stuff already there for people. They don't have to go there and
Mhm.
focus on, oh, we're really, really I mean, you're still gonna ration your food, but at least
Yeah.
they go there and there's something to, yeah, you already have basic supplies set up. There's a place to stay, so they can start building a more permanent, facility. Um, but I think overall, like the harsh truth of it is the fact that, yeah, like, the first groups of people that go is really not like, oh, celebrate we're on a new planet. Like that's a amazing achievement for humanity. Um, but also the big reality of it too is like it's not like the moon where we landed and we're coming straight back. And then we'll send another group of people when we come back. This is more like we can't bring you back, and the first group of people there is really just to start building stuff. Now once
Yeah,
the
makes sense.
tech gets better and refueling, start bringing them back, but for sure the first groups aren't making it back.
Probably gonna be a one-way trip. But I mean, for the yeah, on the one hand, it's a one-way trip, but on the other hand, you get the honor of being the first humans on Mars.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
that
that's
is
a big,
a huge
yeah,
achievement for humanity.
yeah. Your name's gonna live on like forever in history. You know what I mean? You may not be
Yeah,
able to come home and see your family again, but you'll be in the in the history books
yeah,
for
yeah,
quite a
on two
while. So
planets too, and eventually across the
hmm,
solar system. So
right. I'm gonna be
that's
like Matt Damon growing potatoes,
potatoes on Mars.
potatoes on Mars.
You can only cook them so many ways before you run out of recipes. I mean,
And then what was it at the end of the movie? He was like rationing it into like little pieces, like one potato, one square potato per day. Oh
oh
my
man, yeah, I would not survive that.
gosh. Yeah.
Oh,
Woo. That was a great movie. That was a great
yeah.
movie. For sure. Well, William, it's been great talking to you. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about or that you'd like to um say for like our viewers out there? Anything
Mhm.
special that
Yeah,
yeah,
I would
sounds awesome.
say, well, like we had mentioned before, for Expanding Frontiers, the ERA program, I think we had showed the screen earlier. We're accepting applications.
This one,
Uh,
this one for internships.
um, no, well, there's also internships too, right? That we have positions open for. So as interns, you'll be getting to work with the different startups that are here. But also the entrepreneurship program, the applications are open too. So if anyone's interested in launching their own space tech startup, specifically around space data taken from satellites, uh, applications are open for that. And remember, you do launch a company, you're provided with all the mentorship and lab space, office space
This is
to
in
actually.
Brownsville though, but
Hmm.
anybody, it can be remote, right? Is what you said.
Yes. So the program you can join, you can do it remotely. We meet once a week through Zoom. It's usually about an hour, hour and a half at most. And you get to talk to our speakers and all that. You get to work remotely. Our mentors, some of them are not from Brownsville, so you meet with them on Zoom. And then mainly the only times you go in person are if we're having a pitch. But even then, I think you can pitch online too. It's very, very flexible around everyone's schedule. So
Awesome.
yeah. But yeah, no, it's a great program. It's a great opportunity, and it's if you're interested in launching a startup, you can go ahead and do that. And for if anyone's interested in our National Space Society South Texas chapter, we have a big event coming up July 22nd, and so that's gonna be really cool to see. We'll be announcing it soon within the next 2 or 3 days. So if you guys want to check our social medias, that'd be cool. Actually, could you show the Facebook page real quick, just so.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just
I've already.
National Space Society South Texas chapter.
Okay. Let me look it up. Let's see.
Cool. So that's our Facebook page. And same thing for our Instagram as well.
Is
And
this based
so
out of Brownsville or McAllen or where?
So we're based out of Brownsville. Our HQ for the chapter is our EXF, and so it's at the old Pan Am building by the airport in Brownsville. But our last event we had, which was in April, we had a space lawyer talk about, in the law and ethics of space mining, but really it was a big talk about like the utilization of space resources. And it's always one of those questions you say, oh, you can't claim anything in space, but then the way the laws are written, like, well, if you use it or you mess with it, then it's technically yours in space. So then now you get all these cool questions. Well, if I make a rover and I have it drive all over this area, I technically move that dirt. So do I own that plot of land on the moon? So now it's like, oh, well, how do you go about that? So it's all these cool questions you get to ask. But we bring in all these industry professionals and speakers, talk about their work, current issues, and developments in the space industry, and you just get to talk to them and network. So if you guys want to get involved, free, open to the public, and it's great networking. But also, if you're just an enthusiast about space and you just want to get involved and learn, great opportunity for you.
I mean, for now, I
Mhm.
believe there are treaties that kind of ban the whole like commercial, like the
Yeah.
ownership of space, like international treaties. But
Mhm.
you know, as technology progresses and we become more of like a spacefaring race, I do see that changing. It'll be like I don't know. I'm a big Dune fan. Have you ever read Dune? Are you like the
I
book?
unfortunately have not.
Have not.
I
But
need.
there, it's such a big world, man. It's like it's like Frank Herbert. It's like the sci-fi. It's like Lord of the Rings, like but like sci-fi.
Uh-huh.
It's like the movie came out. I'm sure people have watched the movie, and I'm sure it's like piqued interest in the book. But in the book, there is this whole thing like the Choam. It's like a
Mhm.
space chamber.
Uh-huh.
It's like space stock New York Stock Exchange or something. Like it's
Oh.
like yeah, yeah, and it's crazy because like like the ownership of entire planets can like be determined by like these like these fluctuations in stock prices and things like that. So much like how in our current world today, right? Like
Mhm.
these like things these like economic like institutions can change like the fates of entire nations and whatnot like so in that eventually in space it's like like entire planets will be bought and traded on the intergalactic stock exchange or something,
Mhm.
right? Like it's interesting. I'm a business major, man. So it's
Hey, but it's something that applies
it
too.
does, it does, it
It's
does.
cool to see it in sci-fi, and then you realize like, oh well, not too far out, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some things are different, but some things are still the same. And this I
Mhm.
can see that totally happening where it evolves into like this whole like um this mercantile like capitalist
Mhm.
space like spacefaring ship. I don't know. It's a very interesting world. Like
Yeah.
it's not exactly like modern, but it's fascinating that Dune world. It's like there's like modern aspects of it, but there's also this very
Mhm.
old European monarchs and like barons and dukes and emperors and things like that. So there's still the um that much hasn't changed as the
Oh,
same. And yeah, but
I
yeah,
definitely
but
got to
there's
check that out. Yeah, I've got
it's
some friends who've
fascinating.
read the books over and over,
Yeah,
and we're so excited when the movie came out, and I was like, I haven't even touched the books yet, but that's on the list. That's on the
definitely
list.
watch the movie first. I don't know.
Oh,
My my feeling is that like watching the movie first makes the books more enjoyable.
oh,
Something
okay.
like that.
I see.
For most cases, for so many cases, because I've tried it both ways, where I read the book and I see the movie, and then it's like the book is so rich in detail that when you watch the
Mhm.
movie, you're a little bit disappointed because they leave out so much, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like the book is like whereas you watch the movie, it sparks your interest, and then like the book kind of like fleshes out the details, the little minutiae,
Yeah.
and then you have Yeah, and you already have like the pictures in your head, like from the movie. Like it kind of makes things like easier, like to
Mhm.
imagine. Like I don't know, it's fascinating. That's just, but that's just my opinion. Some people disagree. Some people think the opposite is better, but that's just
I think it just depends, you
it
know?
just
Yeah,
depends.
very
Yeah,
person
yeah.
to person.
Right, right, right. Some people do, but yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. But the movie's great. The movie's great. So a lot of people think, you know, the book gets a lot weirder. Yeah, it gets more philosophical, more political. Like it's very Frank Herbert's a great writer. Like Frank, um, his son and Kevin J. Anderson. I don't know, not so much. Like he writes like a bunch of sequels and stuff, but they don't read
Uh-huh.
as well as Frank's original works. So the first 6 books by Frank are like canon. They're
Wow.
amazing. Yeah,
And I
yeah.
mean, you're not limited to like a screen or runtime or anything with the book. So I mean, like I know you can just go all out with it, which is really cool. That I prefer reading the books over watching a movie. And so just because that, you can put as much detail as you want. You're not
Yeah.
limited to, oh, I gotta cut this down for a 90-minute movie or like no, you can go all out with the detail. And yeah, I don't know. But I do try to once you watch the movie after reading the book, you do get a little disappointed, like, man, I pictured them like this, and I pictured this like this, and it's like,
Yeah.
not really. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you figured like there's like this is as part in the book, right? That you kind of like
mhm,
really enjoyed. It's like you didn't really go. They kind of skimmed over that in the movie. They didn't really like focus on
yeah.
that as much,
Or
Like
the cases, where I watched the movie, like with Harry Potter, I watched the movies first as a kid, and then I
yeah,
read the books, and I was like, well,
huh.
that's not how they looked. So, but I mean,
Yeah. Like the book reveals so much more, doesn't it?
oh,
Like
Reveal's a lot more, but also
right,
sometimes it's just a lot different. And I'm just like, I
very.
don't know, I remember it differently.
That wasn't in the movie. I remember this differently. This wasn't the happy ending.
That was bad, man.
Happy ending at the end of the movie. But yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Yeah, it really is like that. It really is like that. Oh man, it's amazing. Well, Brian, um, yes, is there anything else that you'd like to say or that you'd like to
I think I'm good on my end. But thank you for having me on here. This was great. Just getting to talk about the work that we're doing and just talk about space and stuff like that. It's always a fun time. I love doing it. So thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate it.
for sure, for sure. And I think thanks for coming out. Thanks for coming, man, to
Hmm.
this show. It's like I appreciate it as well. Like, Oh
Thank you. Hmm.
gosh, that's what I forgot, man. Dune sci-fi miniseries.
Oh, okay.
The sci-fi channel, right?
Yes.
The sci-fi channel.
Hmm.
There was a Dune miniseries back in the 2000s.
Oh,
Yeah, 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 and people say it's more accurate than the 1984 movie, the David, I think like David Lynch or something made it in
uh-huh.
1984. So the one from like around the year 2000, like with the sci-fi miniseries, I hear I've seen it. I actually own the DVD.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
No,
I
I
did.
have some friends who love the 1984 movie. Like
Oh,
that's the only one they watch. They won't watch the new one. They're like, no, it's not.
it's
I'm
a
like,
cult
okay,
classic. It's
but
a
I didn't
cult
even,
classic.
yeah, but I didn't know there
It's a
was a
cult.
mini series, so I gotta ask them about
Mm,
that. I
mm.
mean, yeah, they probably own it. It's
Yeah, yeah, it's great. It's great. I have it, but we should probably do a watch party or something. That would be awesome.
oh yeah,
For sure, for sure. But yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for coming, man. We gotta do this again. We'll definitely talk some more. And yeah, maybe I'll definitely check this out. The NSS and the EXS. Like this,
mhm.
these are pretty cool organizations. And yeah,
Thank
I
you.
look forward to yeah to checking it out and learning more about you guys. So yeah,
Awesome.
awesome,
Thank you so
awesome,
much.
awesome.
Thank you for having me. It was
Sure,
great.
sure. Thank you for being here. All right.
Thank you.